When we think of sports, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Perhaps the coaches, the brains of the team who constructed the plays to bring their team to victory. Or perhaps the superstars, your LeBron or Messi that shines out there with amazing feats of strength and speed for everyone to see. Or perhaps the cheerleaders, with amazingly coordinated dance numbers that give the players that extra bit of motivation, if you know what I mean, to play harder and perform better. But the one part of sports that nobody seems to care about is the benchwarmers. When you watch an NBA game, you want to see the starters with splashing threes and acrobatic dunks. You want to see the best players on each team sweat buckets and leave it all out there for their team. Everyone's focused on the guys in the midst of all the action, but not once has anyone said, who are the other players? More importantly, how are the other players? It's extremely sad. Their coach doesn't trust them with the responsibility of the game in their hands. As punishment for being doo-doo, they don't get to see the spotlight. All the eyes are on everyone else, not them. But I make sure it's different. When I go to a game, I don't look at the guys who are playing. I stare directly at the bench. That's right, you can catch me in any game in the country, middle school, high school, college, professional, and I'm gonna be staring right at the bench warmer. My motivation for this? I used to be one. Yeah, I played JV basketball for my freshman and sophomore year in high school. Despite all the practicing I did for 2 to 3 hours a day, I was still an elite level bench warmer. Despite my absolutely massive frame at 6'6", I had no value on the team and every game was an opportunity to sit down, relax, and watch some basketball with front row seats and a jersey on. Since I had no hope of ever getting in the game, I would always sit at the end of the bench and watch my coach draw up all the gibberish that was supposed to be the play. Like, I don't even know how my teammates were able to see doctor scribbles and know where to go for each play. I don't know if it was just my eyesight or if that shit was truly illegible because I could not read it. But that's beside the point, because 14-year-old me didn't realize that I was going to get no minutes. So every game I would spend the entire time hoping that it would happen, and I would get to have my moment in the spotlight. I would be able to showcase my moves on the court and have all the ladies screaming my name, but that was just a hope. And I would quickly realize that it would never happen. I sunk into a deep depression, understanding that I would never have my chance to shine on the big stage, and questioning the purpose of even playing basketball. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and was afraid to even go to school out of fear of getting cooked. But one day it snapped. Something in me switched, and I no longer felt dread. Instead, I realized that being a benchwarmer is something to take pride in. Benchwarming is an art that only a select few people get to experience. I realized that getting called into a game was a sign of weakness. It's the easy way out. The starters, the star athletes, they don't have to suffer like we do. So I embraced it. I started showing up to the games with a can of soda in my hand. Then I started wearing a suit and tie to truly emphasize that I was proud of my status. The best part is, nobody noticed. I was at the end of the bench, so no one had any F's to give about what I was doing. I kept this up for a month, and it started becoming my routine to go watch the game with some snacks and be able to sit next to all the players rather than me being one of them. But then it happened. I got called up. The starting center for my team got fouled out, and I was the next best option. So I put down my soda and accepted the fact that I was no longer a bench warmer. I'm not gonna say how it went, but let's just say that within 5 minutes, I was welcomed back into the benchwarming club with open arms. That entire experience had me realizing the struggles that some elite level benchwarmers have to go through. For those who haven't embraced it like me, the struggle of having to push for playing time is actually real. People who don't get time on the court have to go 2 times as hard during practice, and a lot of them still don't get their reward. I remember all of my freshman year coming to every practice with my inhaler and proceeding to go try hard every drill just so the coach could notice me. But my dumbass could never get anything right, so I'd often drop the ball or trip over my own feet trying to run the play. But for people that aren't complete idiots like me, it's still a challenge to try to get time on the floor with other competitive players, especially if you don't have a background in the sport that you play or if you just play for fun. Even if you're playing for fun, no one wants to sit on the bench all game, and it's really depressing to put in so much work for the team you're playing for and still not get to be a part of it. And one of the worst things about it is the fact that if you say anything that isn't in agreement with one of your teammates, you're gonna get freaking cooked. Like, if you try to correct somebody about an error they made and you get microwave minutes, just hop in because you're gonna get heated up. Now I could dive even deeper into the unfair lore of this concept, but I'm gonna let this short excerpt from a basketball player I watch explain my frustration.
These are the top 5 worst teammates to have on your team. First up, we have the wannabe leaders, and they're actually not bad for the reason that you think. 9 times out of 10, you are completely right in what you're telling us to do, but simply because you're not good at basketball, we're gonna do the complete opposite of what you just said.
Yeah, this is the type of stuff that pushes my buttons as a professional benchwarmer. And the worst part is, he's completely valid. Like, who wants to listen to someone's advice that isn't as good at what they do or just doesn't take the sport seriously? I 100% agree with this man in his statement, but it's just annoying not to be taken seriously even if you're trying as hard as you can, putting in all this commitment for nothing. I remember when my school was hosting a basketball tournament and the coach made all the JV players volunteer for 2 days straight. It started at 7 a.m. and ended at 10 p.m. So it was 2 full days of work and we didn't get any service hours or pay. We just had to do it. I remember being so pissed that the coach couldn't give me 5 minutes to play in a game, but had no problem working me for 15 hours. I imagine this is what elite level benchwarmers have to go through, because as you get higher in level of play, the amount of dedication and commitment to the sport you gotta have increases exponentially. Now, I understand that if you play a sport, you signed up for the commitment and chose to do it, but it's still frustrating as hell. Like, you wanna have the perk of being able to say that you're on a sports team, but not everyone wants to do all that. Maybe it's just me and I'm lazy, but it's so annoying having to give everything you got for a team and getting nothing back. If y'all didn't get it before, the whole soda story was capped, and I never wore a suit and tie while on the bench. That's ridiculous. Though I did learn to embrace benchwarming, before that, I was going through hell having to trigger my asthma every day just for a couple minutes in the game. And I feel terrible for people who gotta do this in any professional sports league. Like, I bet if I search up the least earning NBA player in the league right now, it's gonna be Wait, that's actually a lot of money. Maybe I should get back into benchwarming. If I go pro, there's a good chance I might make a bank. So I take back everything I previously said about the struggle of benchwarming, because apparently it's a good way to make money. You get to sit on a bench all day and cheer your teammates on. You don't have to worry about injury, and it seems like you can make $1 million a year averaging 200 claps and 32 sips of water per game. It's a good side hustle. And plus, you have plenty of time to pursue other passions if you want to. Is what everyone else thinks. But seriously though, the benchwarmers work just as hard, if not harder, than the actual starters themselves and don't get any credit. Before y'all come at me talking about well, what can you do about that then? I recognize that nothing can be done to change this. If your fate is to become a benchwarmer, then that's what you must act as. Unless you work overtime in your high school sport, you might not have a chance of becoming one of the spotlight players. But there's always hope. You can always ask the coach what you need to do to get out there more, and you'll probably get some good advice. But if you're not trying to do all that, at least you know that I welcome you to the benchwarmers club, if that's a real thing. But that's gonna do it for this one. Let me know your experiences with benchwarming, if you partake in that act, or if you're a star athlete. And yeah, watch one of my other videos if you want more detail about my experience. But if you don't care, thanks for at least watching. And remember,
in life you have roadblocks.